Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
It's our environment unit, and we're going to be talking about a very small country. It's composed of 9 islands. It's called Tuvalu, and it's somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. We're saying it's halfway between Australia and Hawaii. So we're going to be talking about them. Rising sea levels send Tuvalu to the cloud. The cloud here is... the digital cloud, it's part of the internet. It allows companies to store things online, process things online. It can be dangerous if you put things in the cloud because we have hackers who often break in and steal your data.
Indeed, and of course, if you have all your information on servers, they have to be somewhere, and those servers are... taking a lot of electricity to preserve all your photographs of your birthday party and your friend's outing to the department store or whatever. So that's something to keep in mind. But we're not really talking about that. We're talking about Tuvalu kind of in 2 areas. We're talking about rising sea levels because of climate change. But more importantly, we're talking about the question of whether Tuvalu can actually become a digital country after it sinks into the ocean.
I'm not too concerned because all of these scary climate change prophecies have yet to come true. So we'll just wait and see, shall we? I keep waiting for these prophecies to one time work out.
Okay, well, let's do it, everybody. Let's begin our lesson by listening to today's article read from top to bottom one time. Tuvalu is a small country consisting of 9 islands nestled in the Pacific Ocean, halfway between Australia and Hawaii. During high tide, 40% of the capital district is underwater, and that percentage is increasing. In 1989, the United Nations highlighted a number of island nations, including Tuvalu, that would most likely be flooded at some point in the 21st century. This disturbing prophecy has been looming over Tuvalu ever since. Tuvalu's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Simon Kofi, stated in 2021 that drastic action must be taken against climate change to avoid losing Tuvalu to rising ocean levels. The following year, he made another speech announcing that Tuvalu would be recreated digitally and uploaded to the metaverse. Kofi stated, "It appears we have no choice but to become the world's first digital nation." The project not only aims to preserve the landscape and culture of Tuvalu, but also serves to conserve its rights and boundaries as a nation, even if the country becomes fully submerged. As innovative and creative as this initiative is, it also raises questions of sovereignty, ownership, and ethics. No other question is as pressing as that of who rules a digital state. Can the Parliament of Tuvalu sustain its sovereignty, or will the owners of the servers on which the nation is dependent demand power? What rights will the metaverse, an American corporation, have over the heritage and legacy of Tuvalu? If Tuvalu wants to truly be in charge of its virtual state, it would need to own its own service. Where would it house these? There is also the issue of powering the servers, as data centers are known for their excessive energy consumption. This would go against Tuvalu's attempts to reduce carbon emissions. Despite the many challenges Tuvalu now confronts, the nation is remaining hopeful for the future, be it physical or digital. Okay, it's time for us to discuss the contents of today's lesson right now.
So Tuvalu is very small. Do you know they only have 11,000 people in that whole country?
Pretty small.
It's very tiny. It says here it's nestled in the Pacific Ocean. We use that word nestled to give you this idea that it's kind of enclosed in an area. Maybe you have a cottage that's nestled against the foot of the mountain. So it's just in a place where it's kind of half hidden. Maybe it's kind of encircled by some other things. But it's nestled in the Pacific Ocean. Hard to get to. I think if you wanted to attack this country, it wouldn't be so easy or convenient. But they speak Tuvaluan and English both.
Yeah, I guess their local language is used more often. They just use English in official situations. Although if you're a tourist there, I'm sure they'd be willing to speak to you in English. But again, it's nestled in the Pacific Ocean halfway between Australia and Hawaii. And during high tide, as opposed to low tide, during high tide, when the water is higher, 40% of the capital district is underwater, and that percentage is increasing. Now here, percentage is basically a number or a ratio or an amount that has to do with 100s.
Yeah, they're looking at the percentage here of the capital district. The capital is usually where the government is situated in a particular country. Our capital city, of course, is Washington, D.C. for the federal government. And for state governments, we have capitals all over the place and so many states there. So they have a capital district, an area, and they say that 40% is underwater. And that percentage is increasing. Well, in 1989, the UN, or United Nations, highlighted a number of island nations, and they included Tuvalu that would most likely be flooded at some point in the 21st century. I'll just wait for that to happen. I'm sorry. Some of these predictions are kind of crazy. So this disturbing prophecy, if it's a prophecy, it's somebody foretelling what might happen in the future. It's a little different than prediction. I think predictions, this word is used more often. Maybe you watch your TV at night to see what the weather is going to be like the next day. That's kind of a prediction, a forecast we use, a forecast. We often use forecast to talk about money. A company will forecast their earnings for that year, kind of giving people an idea of how well or how badly they'll do. Prophecy is used more when you're talking about religion or something that's very serious, and climate change has kind of become a religion for people.
Indeed, and of course, the person who makes that prophecy is called a prophet. Like Muhammad, I think, was considered the last prophet of the world, and nothing will change after that. But in this particular case, we're talking about the prophecy of many of these island nations being submerged in water. And then the next sentence goes on to say, this prophecy has been looming over Tuvalu ever since. Well, it's actually part of the same sentence, but in any case, if something looms, that means it's quite obvious, it's hanging over something, and it's probably dangerous. And oftentimes we do use this with the preposition over. There's a shadow looming over me. I think that's how it goes in that one song by the Beatles.
Or sometimes we use looming to talk about pressure that's suddenly coming upon you. I have this report or project looming that I have to finish quickly. So, yeah, like Tom says, it's not always a good thing. It gives you this idea that something's coming that is obstructing maybe your view. Or, like I just said, you have something in your future that's adding pressure to your life that you just need to get done.
Right, and looming also means something terrible that might be happening soon, like there's a storm looming over the city. It might begin at any time. Get inside.
A typhoon, yeah.
A typhoon or a thunderstorm or whatever. And Tuvalu's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Simon Kofi, stated in 2021 that drastic action must be taken against climate change to avoid losing Tuvalu to rising ocean levels. Okay, that's a pretty long sentence here. First of all, the subject is Simon Kofi. I hope I said his name right. He's the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Tuvalu, and just a couple of years ago, he stated that drastic action must be taken against climate change. If something's drastic, it is severe. It requires a big change. It's not weak or feeble or something like that. It's actually something severe that needs to be taken. And yes, indeed, this drastic action must be taken against climate change. He's probably telling all the industrialized countries of the world to stop burning so many fossil fuels.
Actually, what he's saying is give us money.
Probably, yeah.
I read this report, yeah.
Money.
Give us more money.
Help us build some dams around the edge of the island so we don't get flooded. And, well, he's doing this, or he said this, because they want to avoid losing Tuvalu to rising ocean levels. So, indeed, if the ocean levels rise, then things will get will go underwater, they will sink, basically. I guess they won't really sink. They're still in the same level. It's just the water is higher. So I guess you could say they will be flooded.
So drastic could be something that's very extreme, kind of radical. Maybe you've been trying to lose weight forever, and so you decide to do something drastic and just starve yourself, which doesn't work either. But yeah, it's pretty drastic. Like Tom said, it's a very strong thing that you're trying to do. So be careful when you make those drastic decisions. Sometimes they don't pan out very well. Pan out just means result in the kind of reaction or effect that you're looking for. So the following year after Mr. Kofi, and Kofi, we're not sure how he pronounces his name. The following year, he made another speech, and this time he was announcing that Tuvalu would be recreated digitally and uploaded to the metaverse. The metaverse, of course, is the former Facebook. Now, if you do something digitally, you know that it usually involves computers of some sort. So I'm not sure really how practical this idea is. A country can't really be digital and be uploaded to the metaverse, but this was his suggestion, which was kind of interesting to me.
Yes, of course, in the digital age, in the computer age, all sorts of things need to be discussed. And yes, indeed, we can ask ourselves this question, is it possible to have a digital country? And if we did, what would that involve? And to me, of course, this is kind of a confusing question because...
It's kind of a legal question too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all stuff that doesn't really exist, you know? It's all electronic. It's like Bitcoin for me or non-fungible tokens or whatever. All those things seem to be things that don't really exist, and I have yet to understand them, but I'm going to stay clear of those things for now. I like to have some cash in my hand, actually.
Yeah, good idea.
But in any case, yeah, we're going to talk about this. Their only choice is to become the world's first digital nation. Can they do it? Well, let's move on now to the second part of our lesson after we take a break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
Hello everyone, 我是派老师。今天讲解的是夏季合刊 Unit 14 Rising Sea Levels Send Tuvalu to the Cloud。这个单元是文意选填的练习题，内容跟太平洋中的岛国 Tuvalu 有关。那我们都知道，全球暖化持续恶化会造成海平面上升，有些国家因为地势低，有可能因此被海水所淹没。Tuvalu 就有这样的问题，他们有个数位的解决方案，倒不是说要用来解决海平面上升的问题，而是呢，避免这个国家因为被水淹没而灭亡。那我们在主题解说前，老师要再次提醒大家，答题的时候要先看看选项，先大致把这些选项的词性标出来。虽然有些字词性不止一种，不过我们可以根据句子的结构来判断这一题空格要填入什么词性的单字才对。然后呢，再去根据前后文的文意找出正确选项。好，那我们现在就一起来解题吧。文章开头提到Tuvalu 这个小国由9座岛屿组成，坐落于澳洲和夏威夷之间的太平洋海域。涨潮的时候，图瓦鲁的首都区有 40% 的领土会被水淹没，而且这个比率还在持续增加。接着请看第一题。1989年，联合国特别指出，包含图瓦鲁在内的一些岛国，这些国家很可能会在21世纪某个时间点空格。那第一题空格前面有 be 动词，而 be 动词之后常加上过去分词，表示被动语态。前面提到涨潮的时候，首都有 40% 的面积都在水面底下，所以第一题正确答案是 H flooded 遭到淹没。紧接着请看第二题，助动词 has 之前是主词的位置，主词必须是名词，在此是 prophecy 表示预言，名词前可以放形容词来作为修饰。这则预言当然就是指前面 UN 的预估。这样的预言是好消息还是坏消息呢？第二题正确答案应该是 B disturbing 令人忧心的。再来，紧接着我们看第三题。Tuvalu 的外交部长 Simon Kofi 在2021年的时候表示，必须要采取有力的行动应对气候变迁。那 采取行动对抗气候变迁，应该是怕海平面不断上升，吐瓦鲁也随之消失。所以 to 后面加上原形动词，我们称为不定词，表示目的。第三题，正确答案应该是 E avoid 避免。隔年，这位外交部长再次表示 Tuvalu would be 空格 digitally and uploaded to the metaverse。第四题，空格后面有个对的连接词 and 后面是过去分词 uploaded， 表示被动语态，被上传到元宇宙。前面也应该是过去分词，所以要在选项里找，再用文意确认。所以第四题答案选 J recreated， 表示吐瓦鲁将以数位化方式重建，并且上传到元宇宙。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's continue to discuss our article for today. Again, we're talking about Tuvalu in two aspects. One aspect is whether it's going to go under the water because of rising sea levels. And number two, can it become the world's first digital nation? And this is where we're going to try to answer that question here. So let's get to it in the next paragraph here. The second paragraph, it says, the project not only aims to preserve the landscape and culture of Tuvalu, but also serves to conserve its rights and boundaries as a nation, even if the country becomes fully submerged. So this project, of course, is referring to making this country the world's first digital nation. So this project or this idea, it aims to preserve the landscape and culture of Tuvalu. Not only that, but also it wants to conserve its rights and boundaries as a nation. So, yes, indeed, they want to preserve the country, conserve its rights. They want to preserve the landscape and culture of Tuvalu. I guess they'll take pictures or something like that and have 3D models constructed elsewhere.
Well, I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know. And then, of course, they want to conserve the rights of this country for them to, establish relations with other countries and engage in trade with other countries, send ambassadors overseas and things like that.
So, my question is the physical country still there? Or are they just deciding, one day we can't live here, so we're all going to move, but we'll be digital? I'm not sure this works because you don't have real people there.
Right. If the people can't be there, they obviously have to go someplace else.
There's no country there.
And there'll be another country who will have to take them in. So I doubt any country will exist or will allow them to have a country within their borders or boundaries. So here we've got the word boundary, which is similar to the word border. A boundary is a line between two areas. It could be different areas, the boundary between, say, Mexico and the United States, or the boundary between this particular area of the country and that particular area of the country. Or the boundary between states. The Mississippi River is the boundary between Iowa and Wisconsin, for example. And you could also say border, but that's used more for like countries.
You can also use boundary to talk about relationships. For example, teachers should have boundaries with their students. They shouldn't become too close to them. They need to maintain a kind of a distance so that they're still an authority figure and they're not pretending to be their best friend. Sometimes that leads to dangerous things. You might have a boundary at work. I was a boss, and if I got too palsy, really friendly with the people that I was supervising, sometimes that became difficult. So you can use boundary to talk about kind of a line you draw in relationships too.
Indeed. And of course, we're talking about the country possibly becoming submerged. And to submerge just means to go underwater. It kind of means to sink. But to sink, of course, that thing has to actually physically move downward. But in this particular case, it's staying at the same location. It's just the water is going higher. So when the water covers it, it will be submerged. And as innovative and creative as this initiative is, even though this idea is very creative and innovative. It also raises lots of questions regarding things like sovereignty, ownership, and ethics. Sovereignty refers to the power and authority a country has over a certain area that cannot be sacrificed to somebody else. Okay, we usually use this when we talk about countries. Oh, this country claims sovereignty over those islands.
Yeah, right now the WEF is trying to make us one global country, if you could say. But some countries are fighting back, saying we want to maintain our sovereignty. We have our own country. We're not giving up our rights to these big global organizations like WEF or the UN. So sovereignty is very important to maintain your rights as a country and as a citizen. It includes your ethics too. So no other question is as pressing as that of the rules of a digital state. If something's pressing, it's probably putting pressure on someone, right? So if it's pressing, it's very important. It's probably more urgent. Maybe your boss gives you 2 tasks to do and say, this one is more pressing, do that first.
Right, and this has an interesting pattern here. No other something is as pressing as something else. I could say, no other man is as handsome as Joe. Or no other person is as intelligent as Jamie. So in this particular case, we're basically saying that this is the most pressing question, the most important question or problem that they need to deal with. And that is, who's going to be in charge? Who's going to be the ruler of this digital state? Is it going to be a dictator or a friendly, democratically elected person? It's hard to say. And can the parliament of Tuvalu sustain its sovereignty, or will the owners of the servers on which the nation is dependent demand power? So that's a good question. First of all, we've got the parliament, which is the House of Representatives, basically. That's what we call it in the United States, or Congress, I guess. In this particular case, Parliament is a bunch of elected officials who get together and discuss issues. Here, I guess it would be the Legislative Yuan. That's like the Parliament in Taiwan. And yes, indeed, can they continue to keep their sovereignty? Will they continue to be the rulers, or will somebody who owns the servers, will the servers on which the nation is dependent demand power? So a server, of course, is online, you know, that's a website or whatever.
Oh, they could. Well, these are online because they're in the cloud.
Right.
But you can have servers in your company, too.
Okay, very good. And yes, of course, if it's digital, it's going to have servers. And the servers, of course, have people in charge. And they're going to say, well, because your country is being served by us with our servers, well, therefore, we are going to get some power as well. You're going to have to pay some taxes to us or something like that. And the nation is dependent on those servers. If you're dependent on somebody, you need them. You cannot do without them.
No, you cannot. You could also say the nation is reliant on these servers. But if you're dependent on the servers that are in the cloud, you really don't have any power. All they have to do, if they don't like you, they just cut you off. We've seen that already. So, yeah, I'm not sure how this would work if they didn't have their own servers. What rights, and this is a legal question, and I've noticed that our legislatures and our parliaments around the world, they are behind the advances that we're making in digital technology, AI. We don't have a lot of laws that are very clear about who owns what rights do people have when you're talking about metaverse, AI, any of this stuff. So what rights will the metaverse, which is an American corporation, again, it's Facebook, but with a different name, have
I think it's called Meta.
Yeah, Meta.
As the company name.
Oh, you're right.
The metaverse, of course, is this concept that guy who...
It's a world where you come up with your own avatar and things like that. It's kind of crazy. So what rights will they have over the heritage and legacy of Tuvalu? Those are important questions. That's what makes a nation distinct, their heritage and legacy. So if Tuvalu wants to truly be in charge of its virtual state, it would need to own its own servers. I can tell you servers are expensive. Yes.
I don't know much about them,
Yes.
but yes, indeed, if they want to be in charge of their own country, they'll need to have their own servers, which are expensive. And this is a relatively poor Pacific Island nation. Where are they going to get the money? And where would it house these? Here, house is being used as a verb. Yeah, where would they put these servers? How would they get the power for them? And the question is, data centers are known for their excessive energy consumption. So yeah, where would they keep them? Because these data centers use a lot of electricity. They use an excessive amount of energy. If something's excessive, it's just too much. It's a very large number. It's more than necessary.
Right, excessive. Maybe you've eaten too much, you've had excessive calories, or you've had too much to drink. Excessive drinking can destroy someone's life. Anything done to excess, and we're using that, taking part of that word. To do something to excess is to do too much. 过分 is your favorite phrase here, and it usually doesn't lead to good consequences. So this would go against Tuvalu's attempts to reduce carbon emissions. And then finally, in the last paragraph, despite the many challenges Tuvalu now confronts or faces, the nation is remaining hopeful for the future, be it physical or digital.
Yeah, I've heard for a long time that this island nation is sinking, but I think according to the latest information, very few people are leaving. They're much happy to remain there until the last minute.
We
wish them the best of luck. Yeah, me too. It sounds like a tropical paradise. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's turn things over now to our Chinese teacher.
紧接着是第5题，前文提到这项计划不仅力图保存吐瓦鲁的景观和文化，而且 but also serves to 空格 as rights and boundaries as a nation. Serve to 后面要加原形动词，表示可以用来做点点点，做些什么事情，达成什么目的的意思。那我们在选项里找原形动词，再用前后文筛选。第5题选 F conserve 保存，这表示这项计划不仅力图保存吐瓦鲁的景观和文化，而且还有助于维护吐瓦鲁的国家的权利还有边界。再来我们看第6题，这个特殊句型里面的 as 有虽然的意味，是个副词连接词的倒装句，要把形容词放在句子前面。我们可以看到 be 动词在后面，逗点之前，所以 is 是之前呢是主词。那我们必须要从选项里找单数名词，因为空格前还有个 this， 再用前后文筛选。因此第6题选 C initiative。是倡议的意思，表示尽管这项倡议很创新，而且有创意，还是有主权、所有权还有道德的问题。再来我们看第7题 No other question is as pressing as 这边，这就表示后面要说的是最急迫的 that 代替 question， 什么的 questions 从 who 开始，这是由 who 所引导的名词子句。这里缺了动词，而且疑问词开头的名词子句要把疑问词视为单数名词，所以动词必须是第三人称单数型的动词变化。因此第7题答案选 I rules。接着，吐瓦鲁到底能不能够维持主权？或者呢，吐瓦鲁所依赖的伺服器所有者，他会不会可以要求要有权利？元宇宙是一家美国企业。它会对吐瓦鲁的文化资产和历史遗产拥有什么样的权利呢？再来我们看第8题，空格前面是所有个 its 表示吐瓦鲁的，空格后面是名词 state 国家，前面可以用形容词修饰，再用前后文文意来筛选，所以第8题的答案选 D virtual 虚拟的。这些伺服器要安置在何处？另外还有伺服器供电的问题 as data centers are known for their excessive energy 空格。这里呢我们就看到第9题了， be known for 是以什么出名，词组最终需要是个名词，那我们用前后文筛选，因此第9题答案选 A consumption 消耗，这里表示因为数据中心是出了名的高耗能。最后第10题 despite 是个介系词，表示尽管，后面只能加名词，尽管挑战很多，这里 challenges 还有个省略关系代名词的关系子句 Tuvalu now 哒哒哒。那挑战适合配合什么样的动词呢？我们选 G confront 面对， 意思是，尽管吐瓦鲁现在面临着许多挑战，不过呢，他们对未来还是充满希望。好，以上就是我们针对这一篇文艺选填所做的解题，谢谢。
That's all the time we have for today, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We beg you to join us again next time for another edition of our program. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.